Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer from the Greenhorn Valley Library, and today with me I have a very special guest, my friend and author, Crystin McDaniel. So welcome, Crystin.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And so Crystin is here to talk about her book series that she has written. And I have the first book in the series. It's called Unblessed. So I'm going to show you guys this, but this is the very first edition copy. And so Kristin's going to show you the copies like we have at the library. They're going to look a little different. And we do have all three books available for you at the library. So the first one is Unblessed. Is it Unblessed or Unblessed? How do you say it?
Unblessed. Unblessed.
Okay. See, I say blessed.
Yeah.
All right.
Unblessed is the first one. And then the second one is Fire Blessed.
That's
right. And
yeah, no, I think I've read Fire Blessed, but I don't have the copy. I read it on ebook.
Yeah.
And then I haven't read Ice Blessed yet.
Oh, you're in for a treat.
Oh, good.
You get to learn all about the villain.
Oh, nice. So why don't you just give us kind of a synopsis about all of the books, and then we can talk about your new one that's coming out.
Yeah, so this, it is a book series. The first one starts off following a young girl named Kisara, and she lives in a magical world called Marilia, where people have fantastical blessings. You know, they can control fire or water or ice, and they get their blessings typically on their 13th birthday. However, Kisara doesn't get one. So you kind of go through her journey, discovering more about herself and her heritage. And you also get to learn about the other magical race in the world, which are the Transiatur. They're the savage, beastly, shape-shifting, a la, not quite werewolves, but it was kind of influenced by werewolves. And you just kind of get to learn more about the world. And then that's the first book. The second book, you get to see some of the events from the first book told from a different character's perspective. And then the third book continues the story and kind of sets the stage for the villain.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. And like I said, I've read the first one and the second one, but I haven't read the third one yet. So I'm excited. I was waiting for the newer copies to come out because I really like the covers.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Kristen and I were talking. I have this first one from fun fact. Kristen and I used to work at Starbucks together. And that's how we met. And so this was the one that you self-published, right? And then
they're actually all technically self-published, but that is one that I designed the cover myself. So that's actually
yeah. And this is you on the cover, right? In your cape. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love the purple. So, and this has your previous name that you were published under. So used to be under Goodwin. Now it's under McDaniel. So if you can't find it under one or the other, you guys can search the other one. And then your new book is coming out. And this is kind of the end to this this series that you're writing, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's the finale of the series. It's called Dual Blessed. It'll be coming out on December 14th. I'm basically done. I'm just waiting to get a little bit more feedback from my beta readers before I, check off on that. So, but it's going to go through. It's going to bring all the characters back together. They're going to go up against the final boss of the series and basically see if they can bring balance back to Marilia, because you get to find out throughout the series that things aren't quite what they seem.
That sounds very appropriate for the world today, bringing balance back to the world.
Absolutely.
So I have some questions here too that we, just in case I get off topic, because I tend to do that. So, so one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, where did you come up with the names for your characters in the book? I always find that really interesting.
So it's a bunch of random, really awesome things. So I just really like the name Lucian for some reason. I don't know why. And Kisara, I actually adopted from an anime that I like to watch. One of the random side characters in this anime was named Kisara. And I was like, that's such a cool name. I want to make a character off that. But then
that is a great name.
Yeah, I just love it. Sebastian actually came to me in a dream. There's actually a scene in the first book that actually kind of sparked the whole wanting to write. And it's a key scene where the main character in my dream, I was the main character, stuck in this like icy river and everything, and you get scooped out. And I looked up and I was like, Sebastian, you're alive? And I woke up and I was like, who's Sebastian? Why did I think he was dead? I need to tell this story. And I don't know why, but it just came to me, and I was like, Sebastian, Lucian, and Kisara are my three main ones. And then most of my other names I actually developed. I use Latin names for almost all of my character. There's one or two off one. Kisara is one. And Eliana is another name that I just liked the name. But all the other ones I made sure to pick Latin names because I wanted to have kind of a cohesive feel to the story. So a lot of the names of like the elements are Latin terms for those elements. And I did the more unusual Latin names for the Melior, and then the ones that sound a little bit more common for the Transitor. So like Sebastian's technically Latin in origin.
So do you know Latin, or did you kind of just have to research it for the book? And
I do not know Latin. I did not research it, but I have a really awesome reference manual. I have a book called a character naming source book, and it actually gives you names divided by origin. So I can actually go through and look for Egyptian names or Finnish names. It's the best investment
I've never heard of that.
Made. Yeah, it's character naming source book by Sherilyn Kenyon, I think.
Oh, nice. Okay. Oh, yeah. I've read some of her books too, because you were the one that turned me on to like the Kim Harrison series. Yes. And I know that she's kind of in that same genre and stuff, which, by the way, I always recommend that series to everybody. And
Excellent. Another new one that I've found is Shauna McGuire's October Day series, if you haven't found that yet.
Oh, no, I haven't. You'll have to message me it so I don't forget. I'm always looking for good series to read, like I don't have enough books to read. Right. So how long did it take you to write your first book?
So my first book was actually kind of a weird thing. I actually I've always said that I wanted to write ever since I was in middle school. When I was 14, I said that I wanted to be an author. But I never actually sat down and did it. And I started writing Unblessed as part of National Novel Writing Month, where the month of November, your goal is to try and write 50,000 words in 30 days. I don't remember if you remember when I was doing that when we were working together at Starbucks.
I think so, because I think that was the first time I ever heard of it. Now I hear it all the time, and I'm like, oh, I should do that. But
so I did actually write the bulk of Unblessed during National Novel Writing Month in November. So I wrote it in about 30 days, and it was definitely a rough draft. But I was very excited and hyper, and that's why I self-published. And I was like, yeah, this is going to be a thing. And I published it at about I think it was 60,000 words, which is just a little longer than a novella would be. And it took me probably about 8 months before I found a really good editor. I had an editor who did like technical editing. She was more of a copywriter than an editor, go through it. But I actually found a wonderful editor, James, who's in Australia. He actually edits novels. And so he actually gave me content editing where he's like, hey, your first chapter is a little weak, which actually I think the edition you have doesn't have the official new first chapter. So it actually changed a little bit. So that one, altogether, it probably took me about a year to get Unblessed in its current final form.
Yeah, I'll have to check out the one that we have at the library and just see, the differences and stuff, because I always find that interesting too.
I can give you a snippet. So if you open your book, what's the very first line in your book?
Let's see.
The
first line of the book?
Of chapter 1, first line of chapter 1.
It just starts with 13-year-old Kisara Tenebris. Is that how you say it?
Tenebris. Mm-hmm.
Danced excitedly around her bedroom, ending in front of the magically shimmering dress that had arrived just moments ago.
Okay. Magic coated the fabric of the newly delivered blessing dress, the colors dancing through a rainbow of shades. Kisara Tenebris trailed a quivering finger along the hem and admired the play of magic.
Ah, so you did change some things. Okay, well, I'll have to check out the new one then. But this is my special signed edition. See, I think I have it. Can you see?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was very excited.
Yeah, definitely hold on to that because it's just a fun collector's item. But no, I really appreciated getting James's feedback. And like the first thing he told me is like, your first word says 13-year-old. So that means you're targeting 13-year-olds. Is that who you want to read your book? And I was like, well, I don't mind if 13-year-olds read it, but it's really for anybody. He's like, well, then you should start with something different. And I'm like, I didn't think of that.
That makes sense. Yeah. That would be a hard job to, read instead of like, because you're so used to reading, for just enjoyment. Yeah. And to actually read it for that. So do you find that you read like other novels differently now as an author than you did when you were just a reader, or has that changed at all?
Yes and no. I find that really good novels and books that I, have like a fond memory to, I can still read purely for pleasure. But I do find myself occasionally, especially if something starts slipping a little bit, or if I notice things that I've been taught to look for in my own writing. Like if I see a phrase repeated several times throughout the book, I actually catch that. I never noticed that before. So I still definitely can read for pleasure. I can still get stuck into a book without thinking about it, but I do find myself not necessarily critical, that's not the word I'm looking for, but more aware of what I'm reading and like admiring how someone does something, or thinking, oh, that's an interesting way to do that. I've never thought of that before. So I definitely am more discerning, I guess, when I read it, because I can see the work that goes into it, and I appreciate it a little bit more, actually.
Yeah, and I'm sure probably when you come across like really good writing, you kind of get that like, oh, I really like what they did there, or maybe inspire you for your next book or for something. So yes, that's neat. So I also wanted to ask you about your family. So how do they feel about your books and publishing and all of this? Are they supportive? Do they think it's kind of strange? Like, what's their take on it?
They're super supportive. Like my stepmom is actually probably one of my biggest fans. She tells everybody that I'm a writer, and she brags about me all the time. My youngest brother is super into my series. He's actually one of my beta readers. And part of the reason why I'm struggling a little bit is I've really relied on him in the past, because he gives me that really good, because he's my younger brother, so he gives me good feedback because he's closer to my target audience. He's also in his final year of college right now, and so he doesn't have the free time that he used to. So he hasn't been able to read this newest one, Dual Bless, that's coming out. But all of my family is very, very proud. So yeah, I'm very blessed to have people support me and encourage me. My stepmom keeps asking me if I've sent my book to Oprah yet.
That's great. Well, if you ever get on Oprah, you'll have to remember us here in Pueblo.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do you balance like work with writing? Because you still work full time, correct? Or
yes,
you're still with Starbucks, aren't you?
I am still with Starbucks. It's actually shifted a little bit. So I am actually going back to school. I'm going to school to get a degree in Japanese, actually, because I would love to be able to get into the publishing industry. And I'd like to be able to try and I've always had a passion for Japanese culture. I watch anime a lot and am super into that stuff. And I love reading manga. And just like a year or two ago, I was like, I should learn Japanese. I could probably use that in the publishing industry and translate books back and forth. So I'm currently going to school full-time at UT Austin. I still work at Starbucks part-time, but like 30 hours or so. And then I write and do all the other things that normal people do. Really, the way I'm able to balance it. So a lot of it is, one, I don't have a social life. I really don't. I've never did, even before school. I'd like to stay home. I'm very much an introvert. I like to sit at home and not do anything, read my books, play my games. So it was really easy to start with to get the first 3 books going. The 4th book has taken a little bit longer just because I've had some home troubles. I got divorced 2 years ago, and that was a little difficult, and it has impacted my writing a little. But the main thing that I do to be able to balance everything is I am a big fan of schedules. I have set days, like, I can only work certain days. My classes are on certain days. Sundays are set aside purely for me. And that's usually when I set some time to play my games. I set time aside to do writing and editing. So it's making sure that I create that space for myself in my schedule.
Nice. When you were talking about staying home and everything, I was thinking, I wonder if she's a Cancer. What is your zodiac sign?
I'm a Virgo, actually.
Oh, you are a Virgo. Okay. Well, my boyfriend's a Virgo. He's very much a homebody too, so that makes sense. But I always think that when people say that, because I'm like, oh man, that's me. I like quarantining is like, I got this. It's fine. I don't need to go anywhere.
Yep, I'm perfect. The only thing that made me sad was when the bookstores were closed. I
know,
do like going to a bookstore. But.
I know. My favorite bookstore up here. Have you ever been to Poor Richard's in Colorado Springs, where they have like a little cafe and then the used bookstore? It's like one of my favorite bookstores ever. And you can have like coffee and wine, and it's great. It's like, and they have the used bookstore there. So yeah. And I'm very sad because they still haven't reopened. So I'm like, the bookstore's open, but not the cafe, and you can't really like
Mhm.
hang out and, read like we used to. So yeah, that's
Same
sad.
with I have a wonderful local independent bookstore here in Austin called Book People.
Hmm.
Absolutely love that place. They used to do a lot of author events and everything like that, and they haven't gotten author events back going, and they have a cafe too that's not open, but at least they are open for browsing. So that's nice.
Yeah, hopefully things will get back to, somewhat normal. But have you found that that's affected you more like in your writing and stuff as well with the whole COVID thing, or not so much?
It has helped. It hurts actually more than helping, because that added stress of worrying about the world just, makes it to where you don't you're brain dead a little bit. You just want to sit at home and, watch your comfort movies or read your comfort books and not really have to worry about trying to create. I originally hoped to have Dual Blessed out by this summer. But just with everything that was going on, and then, my sister ended up moving in with me. So there was a lot of things that 2020 threw at the whole
Yes.
world.
Yes, it did.
I think everybody's kind of struggling. So this has been
Yeah.
a very difficult year, because I was really excited to get Dual Blessed out earlier and actually start working, because I'll have a plan for the next book that I'm working on. So
And so that'll be like a whole different thing, right? Like
Mhm.
not part of the series. Okay,
Yep.
great.
Yep. Completely new standalone. I'm actually planning on doing a fairy tale retelling. I'm going to do a Sleeping Beauty twist where the prince is the one that's in the enchanted sleep, not the princess.
Oh, interesting.
So
I always
very
like fairy
excited.
tales. So.
Yes, I love the fairy tale retellings. That was one of the ones where, I find the authors, and oh goodness, Marissa Meyer has really amazing fairy tale retellings, but she takes them in a sci-fi context.
Oh,
So her
okay.
first book, Cinderella's a cyborg,
Oh
and
yeah,
she
I've
loses
seen
her foot.
those.
They're
Yeah, I think
so good.
when I was in library school and I took like a young adult literature class, a lot of people were reading those. And did you write the
Mhm.
Beastly one too, or is that someone else?
No, that was someone else.
Because there was a
Um,
Beastly one that I know somebody was
mhm.
reading, but I remember
Alex
Cinder and yeah.
Alex Finn, I think it did. Beastly.
Yeah, I like those though. It's like an
Mhm.
old story in a new way,
But
and
in a
that's
new
that's
way,
really
yes.
cool.
And that was
Yeah.
something that I was like, oh, I want to do something like that. So I'm doing mine's going to be more still pure like fantasy fairy tale based. I'm just
Hmm.
taking the familiar elements and kind of twisting it and putting it on its side. But
Nice.
she was the one that kind of gave me that
That
feeling, because like,
inspiration.
yeah, I was like, that is so cool. I want to do something like that. So let me see what I can do.
Yeah.
So
Well, that
that's
sounds
what
fun. I'll have to look
I,
for that.
yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you have other things to do, and I'm sure I probably do. I'm not as good with schedules as you, so probably just forgetting everything else. It's fine.
It's okay. It's
But I
okay.
always have one question that I like to ask everyone. So, if you had a superpower, what would it be and why?
Ooh, okay. So this is probably either going to be, it's always torn 50-50. I would either want to be psychic, to where I could read minds, just because I worry too much about what the people around me are thinking. And I
That's a
worry
Virgo
that
thing.
people are silently judging me. It would be super nice to actually be able to tell that they're not thinking about me at all. And then the other superpower, I'd really love to know how to fly.
Yeah, flying
That
would
would
be great. I always
flying would
think
be
like
awesome.
being a bit witch, like on Bewitched. Did you ever watch Bewitched when you were
I
little?
did.
It's like my favorite. But yeah, that would definitely be where I would
Yeah.
go with that.
Yeah. So I love to be able to fly. So
Yeah, well, I always find I used to actually ask that when I would do interviews, even at Starbucks, because I just think you can tell a lot about a person when they give you
yeah.
their answer. And so
Simply.
it's just one of
Yeah.
my favorite questions to ask. So,
Yeah.
well,
Awesome.
thanks
It's
so much
fun.
for joining us today. And
Yeah.
I look forward to reading your new book. So make sure you let me know when it comes out.
I
And send
will.
me that other book series so I can
I will.
check that out too.
Absolutely.
Okay. And
Yeah.
if you get to visit again, then stop in to the
I
library and
will.
say hi.
I will definitely.
Okay.
Um,
Thanks so much, Kristen.
thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.